Okay, so I'll go ahead and call this Thursday, May 5th meeting of the Rules and Strategic Planning Standing Committee to order. There was proper proof of notification. Mr. Langreich, was it posted on the bulletin board downstairs? It was, okay. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Okay, a motion by Glassbrenner, a second by Cosgrove. Any discussion on the agenda? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. The motion carries. We have an agenda. Item number 4, public comments. Is there anyone here who wishes to make any comments to the committee? You're a committee member, so non-committee members. Okay, so let's move on to, okay. No, this is not a joint meeting. This is a meeting of the Rules and Strategic Planning.
It's a new committee.
Well, I thought we could do that under agenda item number 6 when we talk about roles and responsibilities. So if you don't mind waiting till that one. Okay, good idea though. I was thinking of it too. I'm just maybe a little slower. Okay, agenda item number 5, approval of minutes. So we have 2 sets of minutes to approve: the March 8th Strategic Planning Committee minutes and the March 14th Rules and Resolutions Committee minutes. So I'm looking for a motion to approve both of those. We can do them separately. Let's do the March 8th Strategic Planning Committee minutes first. Okay, motion by Glassbrenner. I'll go ahead and second the approval of those minutes. All those in favor of approving those minutes, the March 8th Strategic Planning Committee, say aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. And then looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the March 14th Rules and Resolutions Committee. Motion by Cosgrove. And I'll second that one as well. Any discussion on those? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So we have approved minutes from both committees. Okay, so agenda item number 6, where we'll do some introductions here. So I pulled the new language from the body structure document into a cover letter for everybody. I'm just getting to open it myself. Okay, so I actually kind of need a little help on this one too. So I thought what we could do for this section, and I know we have at least one person absent today and 2 people haven't been formally appointed yet, but I thought we could go ahead and go around the room, and if each person could say which committee they are representing. Of course, myself and County Board Chair Brewer, we're automatically on this committee. I'm automatically the chair. He's automatically the vice chair of this committee. But then we have 7 additional members. Each member is representing a standing committee. So if we could just go around the room, maybe starting with Supervisor Cosgrove, and just say your full name and the committee that you're representing, that would be great.
Chad Cosgrove. I'm representing the Education Standing Committee.
Linda Gentis. I'm representing the Land Conservation and Zoning Committee.
And Marty Brewer, Board Chair.
We'll give just a minute. There.
Thank you. Bob Frank, Law Enforcement Judicial.
Also known as Public Safety. Yep.
John Seep, and I guess I'm representing the Veterans Committee.
That'd be HHS and Veterans.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Ingrid Glassbrenner thinks she's representing that. So we'll get this sorted out here. That's why we're doing this in part. Go ahead.
Danielle Rudersdorf, representing Parks, Fair, and Recycling.
Julie Fleming, representing Public Works.
Ingrid Glassbrenner, representing HHS and Veterans.
Okay, so the one we're missing then is Pine Valley and Child Support. Okay, so Supervisor Seep, you're actually representing Pine Valley and Child Support is what I'm hearing. So while you are on HHS and Veterans, Supervisor Glassbrenner is representing HHS and Veterans for the purposes of making sure that the HHS and Veterans Committee is aware of and coordinating with the Strategic Planning and Rules Committee, while your job is to represent this committee on Pine Valley and Child Support. Yes, I agree. Me too. I wasn't quite sure where we were there. The other question I have is I believe that I mentioned 2 people have not been formally chosen by their committees to represent their committees on rules and strategic planning. Which ones are those?
I think we've had action now from Fair, Recycling, and Parks, and I believe from Land and Zoning to delegate supervisors Rudersdorf and Gentis. We'd just be looking now for confirmation at the next county board for confirming appointments.
Okay, so for voting purposes, should they hold off on voting today, or is it okay if they go ahead and vote on matters before this committee today?
I would say to keep it to the letter of the T, that they would refrain from voting would be more appropriate.
Okay,
Especially in the context if we hit decisions that were controversial and we're going to be called to question at later times.
okay, and I'm not quite sure where we'll be today. I don't know that there will be any controversy, but so Supervisor Gentis and Supervisor Rudersdorf, if you could just hold off on voting today, you'll get that ability next month. Okay, so on the cover sheet, it goes into the other, after the membership, there's a section on that this committee acts as the Rules and Resolutions Committee and Ethics Board. And there are 5 sections there, so 5 responsibilities we have. One is we can recommend changes to the county board rules. 2 is we can introduce any resolutions not sponsored by another county body for action at the county board. 3, this is a new one that we haven't had before. It was actually moved from Finance and Personnel over to Rules and Strategic Planning. And that's to provide oversight and advice regarding county administrative affairs with a view of bringing about proper coordination and cooperation between various departments and agencies in the county. And that due efficiency be maintained, the interests of the citizens be served, and such recommended changes regarding the county board body structure document to the county board. So our job is kind of coordinating, making sure that different bodies or committees, is another way to say that, are working well together, and making any recommended changes to the way our committees are structured. And the 4th one is dealing with destruction of county records, which I've never dealt with before. So we might be learning on that, maybe we won't. And then the 5th one is to administer and enforce the code of ethics. So this is the ethics board, and if there are any ethics issues that arise with employees or with county board members, those would be considered by this body. And then section C is that we act as the strategic planning committee. So we propose changes to the strategic plan for the county board. We monitor progress on the strategic plan, and we recommend trainings and programs to educate county board members. So we have Supervisor Glassbrenner on this committee. She was the chair of the strategic planning committee before, so we'll be relying on her and anyone else who was involved. Supervisor Frank was on that committee as well to help us get up to speed on the strategic plan. So are there any questions or feedback on our roles and responsibilities? Okay, there's no action on that one. It's just an informational piece. So that takes us to agenda item number 7, branding committee recommendation. Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to present a resolution to the county board for approval and adoption of an official logo and motto. Background on this item. I will defer to Director Glassbrenner if you'd like to come up, Jason, and we can have you give the pitch on this agenda item and all the fine work that you've done with the branding committee.
So included in the packet, the agenda cover item, as well as the resolution, both have the logo and motto that the county branding subcommittee arrived at. So that took approximately 4 public meetings that were involved. There's a lot of back and forth, of course, with the design agent and Southwest Regional Planning, and myself were kind of acting as the facilitating team. We started out with a brainstorming session. We moved into identifying different words, pictures, surveying all the input that we've received over the last year and a half. We included things like the strategic plan, which had pointed at different things. There was also a marketing plan that was done on behalf of the county for workforce retention and attraction. So that would be kind of a marketing angle. So we tried to include all of that information. And that was the first meeting. Second meeting, we really looked at a motto. How do we arrive at a motto? The third meeting, we really worked on the logo element. And the fourth meeting was actually a follow-up of the third meeting. So what we did was the subcommittee said, well, we like this logo. We think that's the one, but we'd like to see this tweak or that tweak. And so that fourth meeting was actually done by Zoom to verify that the design consultant had incorporated what was suggested by the subcommittee. So what we're looking for today is approval and recommendation to move this resolution forward to the full county board. And the language that is pulled here was I worked to identify other communities that had done branding efforts. And so the language that's there does closely resemble other resolutions that are out there where counties adopted logos or municipalities adopted logos and mottos. And so when I say base, because what I'm saying is approval of the base logo and motto, that's represented towards the bottom of your agenda cover item. But there are variations of that. So the other pictures that you have in there are potential directions that we could go for variations on the base logo. So in other words, we would try to give each department that wanted, let's say the county highway department, they could say, well, we like this element here, we like this direction, but we're trying to create a family of logos so that, again, when they look at it, they go, oh, we know that's part of Richland County's services that they provide. So that's kind of the backstory. I'd love to take questions or comments or yeah.
Okay, any questions or comments for Mr. Glassbrenner, Mr. Frank?
So I see the logo. I like the logo. I think it's catchy. Once we start getting into the next, the ones for the different departments, all of a sudden it almost looks like there's a change in from what the logo looks like to what those symbols are. Is that consistent? It seems inconsistent. It seems like maybe they should be, if we're going to do it one across the board, we should do it across the board. What were the thoughts on that? And the other thought is the term discovered here, I know over time some of the counties use that motto and then 5 years down the road, they may change it. Is that something, are we set in stone for this forever, or is this something that can be looked at and go? No, that's part of the resolution says that the thought in the resolution is that you would all approve, suggest that we adopt this, but then at any time that the county board or it comes up in a subcommittee and we say, hey, look, we think it's time to do a refresh on the logo or motto, the county board just says, let's do it again, which is not uncommon. I mean, that happens in a 5 to 10 year period. Usually, as a matter of fact, I know Sauk County just went through a process where they redid their logo. So, absolutely, it can be redone. It just depends on how administratively and on county board level, how you work that into changing things over. Some changes don't cost any money at all, and other changes may happen when you buy a new truck and other changes may be something as permanent as a sign in front of the county courthouse. So, it's going to be a process for this phase and any future potential changes that you would make. As far as them being different, so there are variations. You can see there that this variation here tries to, that's on the screen now. Yeah, tries to tie in elements. Okay, so this is the first option, which you see that basically the cohesive element is the fact that the county outlines there, the font is the same, the swoosh is there, but it does, in my opinion, become quite utilitarian and very official look. Now, some people may like that. We move to the next options, and that kind of, what do you want to say, adds back a little bit of artistic design where you could use a specific emblem. In that particular case, what we would do is work with the departments to say what emblem do you like, what color do you like. In the third case, which is the one where we added elements back, I mean, those may be tweaked as well, but you can see we added more of the base logo back into it. As far as it always being the exact base logo for each department, I've asked the branding consultant on that, and sometimes it gets hard to include all of the information for a department and the county when you leave the logo completely intact. So for example, on the base logo, all of your motto and the Richland County label is outside of the logo. And in these family of branding elements, you can see that we're using the space inside the logo to try to make it a little bit more compact. So I'm glad to take any suggestions back and say, hey, Rules and Resolutions said they like the idea of keeping more elements of the base logo incorporated in other logos as we move forward. And we'll do the best to include that.
Did you have anything else, Bob?
Yeah, so in this process then, are we picking one of these groups, and then that's going to be the theme for all the departments? Is that kind of where we need to go?
So the idea was to bring examples of the direction that this could go, and to try to leave kind of the artistic element back into the design consultant's role. But again, otherwise what happens is she develops out this entire branding manual for every department, working with department heads to try to get their input, and then we come back to a full committee like this, and you say, well, we don't really care for that. So what we were trying to do is identify some potential directions that we could go, and again, we'd be glad to take suggestions back, but the request would be that once we approve the base logo, get your input here, that you would allow the design consultant and the facilitation team, which would include probably Clint at this point, to kind of make the decision administratively to get that final branding manual and the incorporation of the logos throughout the county.
Okay, so Mr. Seep and then Ms. Gentis. Don, can you just pull that? Bob will help you pull that a little closer to you so you can, folks online can hear you.
Too much. Mr. Glassbrenner. Presentation. I have a question about departmental variation. I understand you to say that there's departments, each department may have its own unique contribution or identity associated with the base logo. Is that a possibility of one of the options?
I would say we're trying to offer some flexibility while keeping it within the family of the base logo. But if you notice all of the different departments today, like if you look at HHS, what's on their business card, it's a bunch of oak tree leaves with kids. And under this style of moving forward, they would not have that much flexibility. So if you took one of these family logos below, HHS could say, well, we would like to have kids, and then we could come up with an emblem with kids in and replace it from the gavel to kids, but with this particular idea, you wouldn't be allowing that much autonomy, because you end up with things that you can't even tell it's associated with the county.
Yes, that I guess was, leads to my next question. If there's a uniqueness in identity from department to department, does that raise the question of one, a department's contribution overshadowing the overarching county logo? And two, if that is done, does this pose a printing problem in terms of cost and a sign painting problem in terms of various vehicles having a different type of identity rather than one uniform signing? I strongly believe in one identifiable logo that is not distracted from by contributions from various elements. But that's only my observation. But my question is, does this pose a complexity in terms of cost for sign making, for printing letterheads, or other identifiable elements that are published in the community?
Yeah, for me, I would say that it's primarily an identification a question. It's not so much a budgetary question in my mind, because these departments, like HHS, has something in their budget to produce business cards with that logo or motto and letterhead and things like that. So once you replace the logo once, it's there and you're just reproducing. So I wouldn't anticipate that cost should be much of a factor. It's more of a factor if we decide to go full out and make sure the font is the same on our signs in front of our buildings. So but as far as autonomy versus kind of a unity feel, that's where I think the real question is do you want to allow the different departments to make their own decision and say, this is what we like, economic development included? Or do you want to say, we want to make sure that it's obvious that this is a family of services that the Richland County government is involved in providing?
Okay, Supervisor Gentis, we got to move on. We got quite a few people on a big agenda. So.
Not going to be long. I really like the logo, and I like the third choice where it says Richland County at the bottom, and it keeps the identity of the logo throughout. And I like you to do that. The slogan's okay. My question was, I thought that you were also trying to make sure that Richland Center and the Richland County had something that was not incompatible, and I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so the branding agent consultant has worked hard to try to keep keep them relative to each other. So you'll see relativity inside the colors of the base logo. You see some similarity in the way that the fonts are. They're not like super dissimilar. And so she is working to maintain, some likeness, some apparent relationship. But for example, the city is working on one that's a circle versus the county shape. And so we aren't quite as far along in the city. We're actually one step behind at the city than we are at the county right now. So I don't know if that answered clearly, Linda, but we're trying to maintain some interaction there and recognizing we don't want one to be totally different than the other one.
Well, I just want to say, I think I just opened these up last night and saw them for the first time. I think they look great. I really, really like the focus on the outdoors. I like the outline of Richland County. I personally kind of like the flexibility that departments have to, they can still say, they don't just have to put a Richland County logo on their business cards or on I don't know what else it would be, a sign outside their building or their trucks, you know, would be a good example with the highway department. I like that they can put highway on there and choose whether or not they want the canoeist or the kayaker, or choose whether or not they want the tree. You know, they could replace it with a symbol that says something about their department, or leave the symbol totally off. But at least it kind of forces everyone to use the outline, the font, somewhat that family of colors. So personally, I'm very happy with it. Anyone else who hasn't spoken yet?
I like it. My preference is to have Richland County moved up into the white lower part of the, do like the flexibility for departments, because if we don't build that in, then we're gonna have mavericks and outliers. Let's try to bring them all in.
And that's at the advice of the design consultant, to say is like, you don't want to eliminate them being, any department being a part of the process, but you can't, if you want to have a family of logos that markets well, you can't have every department designing what their individual team comes up with. So.
And Supervisor Fleming?
Yes. I just want to make a few comments. I love the logo. I do like the fact that the same as mentioned, having the Richland County up in it for the departments. And then obviously they would all be the same. So for all the departments, if this is the way they chose to do the departments, they would all be where it says Richland County inside. Yeah, they wouldn't get to pick, one picks this way and one picks the other, so that the departments would all be the same.
We can do it that way. Again, she works hard, the design consultant works hard to try to, again, allow people flexibility. But if you're saying you'd like it in, I know from conversation with both the design consultant and Kate Koziel, who's helping us through this process, all of us believe that this is sharp to have Richland County in there. So I can go back and say, hey, the rules and resolution appreciated these, and we'd like to try to keep Richland County in there. I wouldn't want to promise that 100%, because we're trying to give also the design consultant some artistic freedom. But from what I've heard, I think that I could certainly go to them and say, hey, we'd like to see that. Let's keep on that track if at all possible. And I think that would be honored.
My point was, I just felt that each department should be one way or the other. So all departments be inside where it says Richland County inside, or they're all outside. So they look more uniform. They each would have their own way to design and what pictures they want on there and which colors and that kind of thing, but all be very similar as far as the design, whether it's outside or whether it's inside.
We could certainly honor that.
That's just my opinion.
Okay, Mr. Cosgrove?
The only thing I would comment, playing the devil's advocate here, is I don't disagree that it looks sharp with Richland County included in it, but how much autonomy will that allow for an emblem to be placed in there and actually recognizable because of how shrunk it's going to become because of that?
Yeah, that is with the different options that you have there, you see the artistic expression really comes out when Richland County is below. Did we have one with the trees in there with Richland County inside the border? That one right there. That one right there kind of offers, and I'm sure she could figure out how to do a tree in there as well, but it does get much more compact, so.
Okay, Supervisor Rudersdorf.
When I look at this one, I see like ambulance service, and then I see like kayaking. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I do like the idea of each department having their own emblem.
Yeah, and I think that this is a little bit, she used the kayak in every spot, and I do think that there could be an opportunity easily for that individual customization while still holding like the element of the tree in the upper left to say, it's the county, it's the text format, and then it's the tree. And then, maybe we work it in. Again, I know that she does a great job of working things in, but I'm not the designer, so, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay, I think everyone's spoken except Supervisor Glassbrenner. So I see Mr. Frank and Mr. Seep want to comment again. So hopefully if you all can just keep it short and we don't do a lot more back and forth after you go, so we can keep moving down on our agenda. So Mr. Frank first and then Mr. Seep.
Thank you. So I think we're in a generation of emojis and pictures, and I'd be curious what the consultants' thoughts are on that. Everything has a picture and a logo. That's why I kind of like the idea of having the cross for the EMS and those kinds of things. I think people that's something we're into. We click on it, and that's something we catch. Do we need a motion? Have we gotten to the motion point on this? If we are, I would make that motion to move this forward.
Okay, so we got a motion by Frank, second by Cosgrove, and then Mr. Seep.
I believe there is I like what you're presenting, but I think that there is a budgetary issue to consider. How many different department signs are we going to have? Are we going to have 15 or 20 different signs with a variation for each? Sign making does cost a hell of a lot of money. And are we going to have 15 different letterheads? I think we should know the budgetary numbers for making all these different signs for different departments. If we want to spend that money, that's fine, and I'm all for a logo, and I like the logo. But if every building from every department is going to have a different sign with a different variation, we're talking about money. Thank you.
Can I respond? So in the resolution itself there, which Clint has up on the board, we tried to address that in the second, be it further resolved.
Can you just read that out?
Sure.
For Mr. Seep.
So be it further resolved that upon completion of the branding manual, the logo and motto and all suggested uses shall be implemented at the administrator's direction and as it is appropriate when considering budgetary constraints, marketing plans on individual departments, sign and vehicle replacement schedules, or other critical decision points.
Very good.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second that would forward this resolution to the county board. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Okay, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote on that. Ms. Dole? And remember, you just have to skip 2 of us. And I'm sorry, Ms. Gentis and Ms. Rudersdorf.
Let's see, we have Sean Murphy Lopez,
Aye.
Marty Brewer, Don Seep, oh, Marty was an aye, sorry, I have his microphone. Don Seep,
Aye.
Ingrid Glassbrenner,
Aye.
Daniel Rudersdorf. Oh, okay, sorry. And Linda can't vote, Chad Cosgrove, Bob Frank,
Aye.
and Julie Fleming.
Aye.
Okay, so it sounds like all 7, it was 7-0, so that motion passes unanimously. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Glassbrenner, and
Thank
good
you.
work. We look forward to hearing about this at the county board. Okay, agenda item number 8, strategic plan review and amendment. Mr. Langren.
Mr. Chair, looking today for 2 types of actions. First one, motion to approve adoption of changes to the strategic plan organizational chart and direct administration to amend and publish without need to return to county board, as the amendment directly reflects structural changes already adopted by resolution number 2223, and to give notification to the county board through the administrator's report in May. Second possible action is to review, accept, and file proposed draft of work plan as presented, or either that or with recommended changes for distribution to departments and committees for feedback. Background on this item is A revised organizational chart has been developed by the assistant to the administrator. The project is a goal of the strategic plan and reflects the changes adopted by the recent restructuring efforts. The amendment to Chapter 1 of the strategic plan has been drafted for review. We've got it up here. I can show you what this looks like, and thank you again, Ms. Dahl, for a fine job on putting together our new organizational table. It breaks down with our now standing committees. It then captures then the committees that are reporting to our standing committees, and then also tries to capture then in the same type of columns then the different administrations, or I'm sorry, the different departments, administration folks and staff that are reporting up through the standing committees. So that is the first item today. Should have changed direction. And then the second part is I do have a drafted work plan. It is in your folder. There's a drafted work plan to the strategic plan that has been further developed by the administrator. This document assigns responsibility of the tasks to staff, supervisors, and/or committees. The document is being presented in committee for review and prior comment prior to distributing to the departments and committees for their feedback. As the county board's advisory body in regards to strategic planning, the committee is asked to give guidance by action to ensure that tasks and criteria are meeting goals and expectations adopted by the county board. That is also in your folder. It is underneath item number 8B. It is a very robust and lengthy document. Everything kind of taking you from left to right for those of folks that might not be familiar with this document. You're seeing from the left the strategy. It should match up with the different strategy points that we have going through the strategic plan. You're seeing the tactics and the actions then in the next column. We're then assigning responsibility to a party. We have a column for performance matrix. We have performance target, start date, end date, as applicable and feasible, estimated financial costs and savings, which is a lot to be determined yet until we kind of get it pushed out to departments to estimate those. And then we have a status of where we're at on those. So you'll see that there's actually a couple there that we have signifying that they've been checked off. We have black with white type. So you see there, create a countywide organizational chart, which is your fourth action down in the tactics and actions. If we are okay with that today, we'll be able to check one off there, which is exciting. So I would turn it back to yourself, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's turn it over to the committee to see if they have comments and questions on these.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Glassbrenner.
Yeah, Administrator Langreich, under the responsible party, the one is on. Can you hear me? Okay. The ones that are in darker purple, where it says assigned DH team, is that department head team?
Yes, thank you. And I would envision then bringing together a collection of department heads and assigning them with the task of going forward and making out an operation or.
Okay, so that there hasn't been like a team formed, but you're envisioning it would include more than one department head?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go
I'd
ahead.
like to make a motion to adopt the changes to the strategic plan organizational chart and direct administration to amend and publish without need to return to Richland County Board.
Okay, so it's a motion by Brewer for the first motion on our cover sheet.
I'll second.
Second by Frank. Discussion on that motion. I really like that organizational chart. I was very impressed.
I was just going to say that too. Thank you, Cheryl. Looks great.
Good work. Okay, all those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, so that motion carries unanimously. So then we have the second part, and that's the work plan. And I think the way you worded it is something about looking for a motion to accept and file this work plan for distribution to departments and committees for feedback. So I'm assuming that for this one, you would be relying on each representative of a standing committee to be working with their chair, if they're not already the chair of that committee, to make sure that this gets on their agenda and that every standing committee takes a look at this. Is that right?
Yes, we talked about this through strategic plan on the mindset that from a policy standpoint, establishing what we're going to do and why we're going to do it is kind of the folks of, or the task of policymakers. But then as we go into who's going to do it and when they're going to do it, what the performance standards should be, and achieving it is kind of more in an administrative type of realm. But certainly there's some crossover here. I don't know if I'm quite so bold as to say this committee, you're in charge of this, without having consent from, this is the expectation of the plan. Some of them are, very, very specific, like you'll see the streamlined organizational structure one. This was turned over to myself, specifying that a land conservation committee will conduct this action. Some of these I've been so bold as well as to include, say, like underneath item, is it here? There are, boy, am I missing some? Looks like I'm missing a page here.
Pages?
They're all four there. I'm not seeing. Okay, there we go. There we go. So there's a lot of tasking to committees. There's also tasking for a vice chair position. So for me to tell Sean, these are your jobs underneath invest in education, county board supervisors, and then task him with creation of a mentor program and all those types of things. Again, I'm looking to see if that's okay, and if that's the intentions of what how you want to handle it, or if you want to say this should be an administrative function.
I like it.
Oh no, can I say no now? Well, I was just going to suggest a little tweak under that. So this committee's in charge of training under the body structure document. And so I was just going to suggest that maybe instead of it saying vice chair, that it say rules and strategic planning committee. And that's why I put on the agenda later that we talk about the county board training and mentor program, just to share with everyone what was, because Marty asked me to work on that for the internal training, and I wanted to make sure everyone here saw it and then make sure we're getting it out to the whole county board. So that's my suggestion there. It's just to take that position off and replace it with the committee instead. Just so that because I don't know that anywhere it's written that the vice chair,
other than what would arrive right here. So that's why it doesn't feel like it should be up to your administrator to tell one of their bosses what they're going to do in this.
I personally, and if this is okay with you, Marty, I would feel a little more comfortable if I brought things here just to make sure.
Well,
yeah.
As long as you're the chair of this committee, it seems logical.
And I know this is a lot too, Mr. Chair, to try to digest this. If it's appropriate to kind of sit on it for a month to really kind of reflect on it, and then if you want to be so bold then before we were to release it out to departments, I can understand and appreciate that. The nature of a lot of these doesn't mean that we're not going to continue action on them. As you can see, we've already kind of ticked off, I think, 3. And I mean, we're going to continue rolling at these. We know that these are the marks to hit. It's just, continuing to refine it. I envision once we push it out to departments, then I get their feedback. Then again, it's coming before this body, and it's going to be an ongoing conversation, if not monthly, every other month, on where are we at on the plan? What do we think is feasible? What do we think is not feasible? And should we be adjusting it? So,
can I ask Administrator Langrick, what is when we do roll this out and you give them to the various departments, what is your first expectation going to be when you hand this to them? You just want to hear feedback, or are you going to have anything more specific that you want?
It's going to be if there's a better way to define performance matrix, performance targets, and all those types of columns, and the feasibility on gauging. Is this going to fit in an existing load, and then also helping kind of sort out costs associated with it?
Okay. What about for committees, like where, it's like a land and zoning or our committee? What is your expectation then from the committee? Similar?
Pretty much, I would envision then going to those standing committees in their committee and having it agended and saying this is kind of the marching orders that are put by from down from rules and strategic planning. And again, though, what is assessing it as a body, is this something that you think you can take on, or should be amended to more of committee in conjunction with administration or at the department, or looking for that feedback again from that body?
One other thing I know under, let me see if I can find it. Oh, at the top, in the first section, it says to write a comprehensive plan, and currently you have that as the responsible party of our committee, the Rules and Strategic Planning Committee. And I know Chair Murphy Lopez had brought this up, that actually in our current document, that is sitting under land and zonings. So I don't know, can we leave that as is right now, or is that something that has to be?
I think we could change that, but it's probably something that we might need a month to work on. I was thinking that the performance metric might be a little, it might put a little too much on this committee to have to do a comp plan. I guess I personally don't mind switching it from land and zoning over to rules and strategic planning within our body structure document. But I was thinking more along the lines of maybe this committee could come up with a scope and a budget for a comp plan, because I don't see us writing a comp plan. I see us hiring somebody or having maybe staff do it, but this committee obviously can't. And some comp plans I've seen cost 50, 100 grand, and not that they have to cost that, but I think Southwest Regional Planning Commission would probably like to work on it, but I'm assuming there might be a cost to it, or we might want to go out to bid, and see what consultants are out there. So in my mind, I would just tweak the language of that one, and maybe we need a month to work on tweaking that language, and our own committee needs time to comment.
So my question under that is to write a comprehensive plan. What comprehensive plan is that? I believe the land did they write the land use comprehensive plan? I think that's just for grants. I know under this, they'll be tasked under the state GIS funding for NG 911. That's got to be part of the land use plan and the mapping plan. So are we talking two different plans here?
Respond to that. So that's what I would like. That's what I envision, like the first step for this body to sort out. I know previous conversations that we did have through strategic planning kind of talked more of a comprehensive plan that might look more like a municipality plan that went beyond land use and talked more on service delivery and other demographic impacts as with housing and economic developments and all those other pieces that it's touching. If it was more in tune to what we have and what's kind of more in the realm of mandated by state on a land comprehension plan and land use plan, then I would say, yes, we define that as this is the scope, and then that would be more appropriate to be in a land and zoning committee.
Yeah, maybe we need both committees right now listed under there till we get the scope sorted out. It's kind of what I'm hearing. The scope question is a big one. Mr. Seat.
Yes, it might be helpful to take a look at the comprehensive plan that was written.
Hey, Don, I need you to pull that mic closer to you again.
It might be helpful to go back and look at the comprehensive plan that was written and adopted by the county more than 10 years ago now. We're overdue. And as a model, perhaps, for modification. But the emphasis of that comprehensive plan was a county-wide plan with an emphasis, yes, on land use, on zoning, on the use of our natural resources, different than a strategic plan that has to do with how you run the county board or how you run county government. And so in the original document, we had the help of Southwest Regional Planning. They met with every township first, and that was integrated with the comprehensive plan of the county. So I think it might be helpful to go back and look at our comprehensive plan that was written originally with the help of Southwest Regional Planning. Just to know the history.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think we're still looking for a motion and a second to get this out to committees and department heads for their back.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, he did mention, did we need another month before we do that? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I guess my thoughts on it are, I think it's fine to get a draft out to everyone for them to be commenting on,
Okay.
and that work plan won't be adopted until it comes back to this committee. So we can put it on our agenda next month to have, we can potentially make changes, but I'm sure he's going to be hearing from a lot of people over the coming weeks and months. So I guess I personally don't think it has to be all perfect before it goes out to everyone else, because they're going to have a lot of input.
I would be willing to make that motion then.
Okay, motion by Glassbrenner, second by Cosgrove. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Okay, that motion carries, so that can go ahead and go out. Thank you for doing all that work. and all that
Thank
together.
you.
But is the process that goes out, are we bringing it back to our individual committees, or is that just gonna go to the chairs? What's the?
I plan on pushing it out through departments and then for the items that are specified to other committees to make sure that the chair knows about it and have it arrive at one of their agendas.
And I would also say that if for some reason, like you're the public safety rep, is that right? Just you could also work with Melissa to make sure it lands on that agenda. So I think that's part of our job too, is to make sure that things aren't getting missed. So. Okay, so thank you. That takes us to agenda item number 9, committee financial oversight. Document open. Okay, so I prepared this. I'm starting to see some agendas come out, and I know there's inconsistency between committees about how they handle finances. And the Rules and Resolutions Committee in the last term did some work to insert some language into the body structure document, which says that there should be a minimum quarterly report on expenditures by departments to their oversight committee. And a lot of committees had not been doing that. And so like I saw at Finance and Personnel on Tuesday, it was county board, treasurer, and administration, clerk, all those financial reports were there. And so that's one change that's already happened. I think one thing that's not clear right now, and so I'm bringing this personally to you all for your consideration today, is that our body structure document, we don't currently require committees to approve monthly expenditures for their departments. But in our administrative manual at the county, we have language on procedures for approval of expenditures. And the way it's written right now, and I'm just reading from the admin manual, it says, for those department heads who have regularly scheduled oversight committee meetings, it is their responsibility to provide the oversight committee with documentation of expenditures for approval. Approval of expenditures must be part of the monthly agenda. For those departments which have less frequent committee meetings, a semi-annual review of the budget, which is kind of a new item there, and expenditures is required. So on page 2 of the agenda item cover, there's a chart, and we looked at this in Rules and Resolutions back in January of this year. And you can kind of see what the different standing committees were doing as far as approving monthly bills. You had 13, approximately 13 out of 18 approving monthly bills and 5 out of 18 not. And then as far as monitoring the annual budget, we only had 6 out of those 18 committees doing that annual monitoring. That regular monitoring of the budget. So that's why we passed that quarterly requirement. So the purpose of that was to increase accountability regarding departmental budget performance. And we did incorporate that on March 30th when the county board had that special meeting. So my understanding of how bills are currently paid, and I know like Mr. Frank, you were on the audit committee, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but just kind of what I'm picking up from others is that all our bills are paid for through the treasurer and clerk administrator's office. The audit committee and oversight committees, they review the expenditures, but oftentimes these expenditures have already been paid by administrative staff before the audit committee sees them or before oversight committees approve them. So over time, the practices have been carried out more for transparency's sake and less for actual approval's sake, is what I'm picking up. So what I'm recommending is that there be a change in the admin manual to bring greater consistency, reduce busy work on committee agendas so we don't have to pay monthly bills, but at the same time keep budget transparency intact. So I'm suggesting removing all the language that's stricken out, which is basically the last two sentences of what I just read, and that it be replaced with, and so I'll just read the whole thing as it would read if you all are interested in doing this. For those department heads who have regularly scheduled oversight committee meetings, it is their responsibility to provide the oversight committee with minimum quarterly reports on actual versus approved annual budget in funds managed by their department, as well as a list of expenditures. So the effect of that would be there would no longer be a need for a monthly agenda item to approve bills, but there would still be a requirement to have a quarterly report listing out all those expenditures, and then each committee would basically approve the receipt of that list of expenditures. So if we ever had any issues, if we didn't like an expenditure, we could basically say, I don't accept your report because I don't think it's good, or something like that. Yep, Mr. C.
I'm thinking of a couple of boards or committees that I've been on over the years, one of which is Pine Valley, which has a very, very significant budget with pages and pages, line item for each bill or voucher presented. And that is reviewed monthly by the committee and approved for payment, except for the prepays. Those are, I guess, approved retroactively. That's a very, very essential element of accountability for a multi-million-dollar business, just as it is for Health and Human Services. I think that department should have the department committees should have the liberty of reviewing bills and expenditures on a monthly basis if they should so choose, but at least on a minimum quarterly basis. I think we owe that kind of accountability. I'm opposed to just letting bills slide for 3 months. And further, the audit committee, it's impossible for them. Anyone who's been on the audit committee will tell you that there's no way that they can identify whether bills are what is the word, valid or not, because there's so much to do, and it's an expectation that is almost going through the motions for the audit committee. But getting back to this, I think that there needs to be accountability for especially the major departments like Highway, Health and Human Services, Sheriff's Department, and Pine Valley. Maybe not so much for other minor budgetary departments, minor budget departments, but we're talking about a heck of a lot of money.
And I'm glad you made those comments because it reminded me there was another section to this. And the other section was the body structure document. So currently the body structure document doesn't say anything about paying monthly bills or reviewing expenditures for any committee. It's only buried in that admin manual. So what I did, and Mr. Langrick's got this up on the screen right now, in red, I've got language inserted. So right now, every standing committee says that they, one of their duties is to monitor the actual versus approved annual budget and funds managed by their department, but it doesn't on a minimum quarterly basis, but it doesn't, but I've got inserted in there, including review of expenditures. The issue that you bring up about Pine Valley and the monthly review, this would not preclude any department from still doing
Right.
that. They could obviously still do it on a monthly basis, but I'll use the example of UW Extension and UW Richland. Right now, those are done on a monthly basis. Land Conservation Committee was another example. But oftentimes, what my argument is, they already paid the bills. And we're passing around a sheet of paper and signing it. And I asked one time, I said, well, where's the signature go? And they said, well, it goes to the clerk's office, but they've already paid the bill. It's more just for transparency. So I just want to I guess I've been very confused by this since my 4 years on the board. Why are we approving monthly bills? Why are we signing our names in some committees and others not? And I think there's a lot of different stuff going on, and I was hoping just to bring more consistency with this change. So,
May I add, Mr. Brewer and I are both on the committee for Pine Valley, and we both very much, I know, appreciate the line item accountability for the expenditures that are submitted for approval. And those bills are not paid until they're approved by the committee, except for prepaid items like phone bills and other items.
okay, thank you. Thoughts from other people? Mr. Frank and then Mr. Brewer. Go ahead, Mr. Brewer.
Speaking about Pine Valley, it would be impossible to review 3 months worth of bills there because we'd have 8 or 10 pages. So they would continue doing it on a monthly basis. I don't think the language precludes that. I think it says at least on a quarterly basis. Maybe stronger verbiage could be done, but you can still do it on a monthly. I don't know how you'd say that. I don't think it precludes that, Don.
And Clerk Kalish has something to say, so I'll let him jump in.
Mic still isn't working, sorry. As we talked about at the orientation meeting last week, those of you that were here remember, in terms of, reports being available and there for review every month, Accounting Supervisor Wheelock does spend a considerable amount of time drafting monthly reports for each department that is shared with each department head. So those reports are provided to most departments. She can give you a list of who she gives them to, but they are, expenditure guidelines, revenue guidelines, all those things that would allow a department to look at exactly where their budget is and where those numbers are. We can give more detail as to what each revenue or expenditure is, but those reports are provided. So just so you all know that this information is made available. And then also for the bigger departments, so for Pine Valley, and for highway, there's a separate report prepared for those bigger departments that really breaks down their cash balance to make sure, one, that we're balancing to cash, but second of all, that they have a very detailed description of what they're processing on their end and then what we're processing on our end. There's 2 different systems that are kind of in play there too, so it does lots of different things, but in terms of bills being paid before, you're right, some of those bills are paid before, Pine Valleys are approved, and then they send us the bills to pay. And so it's always been this gray area. Well, not really gray area. There are some bills we prepay in advance. So attorney bills, credit card bills, utility bills, those standing normal bills that we can't really argue with the utility charge, right? Like we have to pay our phone bill. So those bills are paid before. HHS is another committee. They approve their own bills. So once those are approved, they're sent to my office for us to cut the check. So there has been a little bit of review by Pine Valley Highway and HHS when we cut their checks. So the other departments are the ones that we then, we hold on to them until an audit committee would review them. Bear in mind, the audit committee doesn't formally exist as it did. So when you folks came in the 3rd Monday of every month, that's now going to be Clinton Derrick meeting the 3rd Monday of every month to essentially take the place of the audit committee. So there's still that system of checks and balances in place. And then, that what bills are paid, it's going to be communication between Clint and myself primarily to make sure that If there is anything paid in advance, that obviously it's one of those standing bills that we would just normally, I call them operational bills, that we would pay ahead of time. And then everything else will wait until that third Monday for Clint and I to review. Or, what I'd like to do is pay these things as they come in, so we're not, stacking bills once a month, because then if you're trying to find reports, there's a bit of a delay there, a bit of a lag time. And so this way, by the end of the month, when we have that cash trial balance, then, we're not sitting on any bills, or we're kind of caught up as much as we can. So just to provide you with some clarity on how that works. So thank you.
Thank you. So I guess in this day and age, quarterly seems a long time away for numbers and data to go through. I really think that monthly, these agencies are getting the information. I'm guessing you can dump it to an Excel format, CSV file if they want to change it, or present it to their committee a little different way. I mean, that's all electronic. I think going anything more than monthly is allowing for a question of the committees to go, what happened in the last 2 months? Well, actually, what happened in the last 3 months? I like the idea of staying with at least monthly to the oversight committees.
So other people feel pretty much the same way. You want to keep seeing the monthly. I'm seeing some head nodding from Linda. Okay. Okay. Well,
You need a motion?
no, we don't need a motion, because I think that's not. I think I was recommending something different.
Mr. Chair, may I make one comment? I
Go
think
ahead.
most department heads, I really do think they'd rather see it on a monthly basis, because I think of Adam Haiti, for instance, over in the extension. Adam was a stickler for this, being Adam. And in fact, he didn't like sometimes the timing of our meeting. He said, well, we're doing this after the fact. It really bothers me. But when I was the chair of that committee, I said, well, but Adam, we're still reviewing what you did. Even though we say, yeah, it's okay to pay the bills, and some of them, they've already been paid, but we're still doing an audit here. And I think that allayed his fears or trepidation.
Adam has been in trouble ever since he got in trouble with Eve.
So, we have a budget. We have department heads that we commit that budget to. We trust those department heads. I think monthly is a good check and balance for the committee members to know. I think we have decent rules in place that if expenditures go over a certain amount, they've got to go through another process to make sure that we're not blasting things out of proportion. So I like the idea. I'm not in favor of this going quarterly, so I would suggest this. I would not vote in favor of this at this point until we clean some of that up.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any need for anyone to make a motion in this regard. I do think that the only place right now this is in our admin manual. It's not in our body structure document. I'll just point out on the page 2 where that chart is, there are inconsistencies right now. The way it is listed is emergency management, finance and personnel, health and human services, property, and veteran service. They were not paying monthly bills when I reviewed their minutes for 2021. I know that health and human services, that there was some sort of training that happened for the committee for the committee 2 years ago. And it said now that there's an administrator, we won't be approving monthly bills. We'll be receiving a report on monthly bills or something like that. So I still will maintain that there is inconsistency out there, and I do think we need to kind of clarify and sort that out, so that one committee doesn't think they're doing one thing and another committee another thing. But I don't think it's appropriate to do it today. This is just, I think, meant to kind of reveal some of the inconsistency, and it's been sometimes I don't know it. Yeah, I personally have not felt like I'm really approving the bill. I've felt like, if I'm auditing the bills, that's different. That's a different way of saying it, and that might be more accurate. So maybe we could work on clarifying the language at a future date, so we're just all real clear on defining what it is we're doing.
Mr. Chair, that was going to be my question, because I sit on HHS, and I was under the impression that yeah, that we are not approving the bills, so we're just looking at them. So now I'm a little bit confused. I'm even more confused, I feel. So you're saying that we do we know? I mean, across the board, are we required to approve in any of these?
They do approve the bills.
But what Sean said, we had been communicated that now that we have a county administrator and his oversight on the bills, we still get vouchers and expenditures, but it's really just an informational, we're not doing any type of action on them.
On Wednesday, myself and Tammy Wheelock do a coordinated call with Stephanie when we review their expenses and look for any type of anomalies in question. And
so is that unique to HHS then, or is that happening with other departments?
that's the only department right now that we're doing that on a recurring monthly basis.
Okay, so I did not know that. That's helpful. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I think we can just wait on this item and then we'll bring it back and hopefully clarify the confusion out there. But thanks for entertaining my my idea, you know. Those of you who know me and have been on committees with me know that I'm usually not shy about bringing ideas forward, and sometimes I get shot down, and that's okay. So,
Good discussion.
okay, so that takes us to agenda item number 10, body committee structure document amendments. So we've got 10A, which is ADA Compliance Committee, and I'm going to present that one, and then I think Mr. Langreich, you're doing the second one. Is that right?
I believe so. Let me get it pulled up here. We're looking at 10.
You've got, this might be a little confusing because our documents, it looks like, because Mr. Langreich and I didn't coordinate real well, if you could go to the one that is first titled 10A ADA Compliance Committee. There we go. We'll handle that one first, and then we'll let him handle the other ones. So here I'm bringing forward a motion to recommend to the county board that we amend the body structure document to make changes to the ADA Compliance Committee. So the body structure document currently requires the county board chair to serve on the ADA Compliance Committee, but Mr. Brewer, not interested in that one. Usually doesn't meet anyway. But I think in order to do that, we need to change the committee structure document. So what I was recommending here is we just strike the words the county board chair under the membership. And we currently have 3 county board supervisors on this committee. So it's currently listed as the county board chair, the county vice chair, and then 1 supervisor. So I'm just suggesting we strike county board chair and replace 1 supervisor with 2 supervisors. So Mr. Brewer, I'm not sure if you want to speak to that, but I think
I will make a comment. Now, the ADA Compliance Committee is only going to meet when there's a challenge or an item is brought up by a citizen that we're not ADA compliant. One such example was the hiking biking trail. We had a wheelchair bound citizen who said, "You're not ADA compliant because I can't use the trail." We would have had to pave the whole trail. And I'm not sure where that issue ended up because we never met. And I think that it's best for the chair, if we ever have a situation like that, I'm sure we will, it's best for the chair not to be on that committee, because then the chair can kind of serve as a final arbiter or something. That's just my thoughts. It's a committee that hopefully will never meet, but it can meet.
And I know this committee has not met in the past couple of years, but there is another responsibility on there, and I believe it's for the ADA transition plan. And so if we ever decided to start working on that, that would require more regular meetings. But I don't think Mr. Brewer is going to be, he will not be upset with this decision, correct? Because you don't want to be on this. So if someone's willing to support his. Okay, motion by Cosgrove, second by Fleming. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor of, and this would be Recommendation to amend the body structure document, and that would go to the county board. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. And then B is Health and Human Services and Veterans Standing Committee. That's Mr. You. That's you, Mr. Langreich.
Looking today for a motion to approve changes to the structure document regarding the Land and Zoning Committee, Health and Human Services and Veterans. And then we just addressed the ADA one, so let's strike that one. And recommend resolution to the Richland County Board for adoption at their May 17th meeting. And I think we just talked about, so skip the ADA one here, but then we're looking at for Health and Human Services and Veterans Standing Committee, identifying the 2 citizen veterans members as non-voting for the items specific to the Board of Health. So it was brought to our attention by Wisconsin State Statute 251 something, I forget the name of it, that it limits a Board of Health to 9 members. And we have, with our configuration right now of Health and Human Services Veterans, we have 11 members. So in trying to arrive at a solution, Director Thorson actually reached out through Rose Cahoot to the Department of Health and Human Services. I guess you can petition for an acceptance to that, but we thought as an easier resolve would be to just, when items are coming up for Board of Health, to have then 2 of the members refrain from voting to satisfy then the role of Board of Health. With Land and Zoning Standing Committee, we're looking at just adding notes to the committee structure document that would state to the effect that FSA, or that FSA, typo there, to not provide membership. There's a conflict right now with state statute and federal code. Our state statute would direct that the chair or representative of FSA should be a member on the Land Conservation Committee, which is one of the roles that the Standing Committee performs. But then guidance and interpretation of federal code that came down through FSA is that they will not allow one of their members to participate on the committee as a direct representative from SA. So they're kind of in conflict. But we thought, in talking with Attorney Wendell, leave it on there to satisfy state statutes of, yes, we have a chair and seat available, but we're just not going to fill it because federal code says that we're not going to fill it, and that way we maintain compliance with both federal code and with state statute. Did I catch everything, Cheryl?
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Yep, go ahead.
So, Clint, I did receive an email from Director Thorson this morning that Rose did look into the option of possibly getting a waiver, and received feedback from DHS Division of Public Health Southern Regional Director that there are several counties that do combine the 2, the health and the veterans, but most of them range from 5 to 9 members, and advised that we would actually consult our corp counsel if we wanted to do that. My question is, and she sent me the statute language, hopefully. So it says a local board of health shall consist of not more than 9 members. My question is, with the solution that you're proposing, if we have the 2 veterans citizen members as non-voting members or non-voting on the local board of health, are they still members? And would that violate that 9 members?
In talking with Attorney Wendell, he thought we would be good because
it would be okay.
they would still be part of a Health and Human Services Committee, but when we're saying that we're taking actions on health board types of things, that we're defining it then and defining membership to essentially exclude them from any type of decision authority on
Okay,
those.
great. And you already talked with Attorney Wendell. Then that answers my question. I'm glad that this is the solution that we came to, because then we were starting to discuss, do we need to have a subcommittee and do we have to adjourn? And then, yeah, so great. Thank you.
Okay, and then Mr. Langreich has highlighted language in the body structure document under 10A, committee structure 5 May 2022. So you can see that highlighted in yellow. So we're looking for a motion to approve those changes to the structure document and forward that to the county board.
Is this approving both of the changes
This
for
would-
the FSA as well?
This would approve the FSA and the HHS and veterans.
Correct, excluding the ADAs that we just took out.
Okay, I will make that motion, Supervisor Glassburner.
Could you read the portion related to HS veterans.
Yep, absolutely. So we got motion by Glassbrenner. Is there a second? Second by Frank, and then if you could read that. Mr.
Sure. So we're looking for motion to approve changes to the structure document regarding Land and Zoning Committee, Health and Human Services and Veterans, and to recommend resolution to the Richland County Board for adoption at their May 17th meeting.
And then, Mr. Seep, the language in the body structure document, it would add language under HHS and veterans that would say, veterans, citizens, appointees will not act on decisions brought to the Board of Health. Any further discussion on the motion?
Yes, I'm not quite clear on that. So what issues would the veteran citizens vote on?
Well, and to be honest, if I can speak, Mr. Chair, Mr. Seep, a lot of the things that we do on the HHS committee or the board every month, it's not local Board of Health related. There are very specific things that are local Board of Health related, and we don't, most of the time, our agenda does not include anything that would be related to that. So and we're going to discuss this at our next meeting, but if we want, as of right now, the veterans, citizens members can vote on anything that's just related to HHS board. The local Board of Health is different than that. Does that help?
Fine. So HSS board members would vote on any matter that related to veterans as well.
Correct.
I think this is a protocol that's probably a work in progress.
Yes, and we will have some discussion on that at our meeting.
Thank you.
And just to restate this, veteran citizen appointees on the HHS and Veteran Standing Committee would be able to vote on any matter before that committee except matters relating to the Board of Health.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
So language changes that we'd be looking to make here up on the screen would be underneath Health and Human Services, paragraph D, where it says acts as the Health and Human Services Board and the follow, drop down to subparagraph C, perform the duties set forth in Chapter 251 Wisconsin State Statute and such other duties as may be imposed upon the county, imposed upon by the county board. We've added a language that says veteran citizens appointees will not act on decisions brought to the Board of Health. So that's kind of where we've just made an added language change there. And then underneath the land and zoning, we're just adding a note that says per federal code chapter, designee from FSA is prohibited.
So as the document is presently written, there would be no occasion under which people who are on the committee who are veterans would meet separately in any other body with the Veteran Service Office. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So in effect, there is no Veteran Service Commission, just a Veterans Committee as part of the Health and Human Services Board.
However you'd like to say it, but the Health and Human Services Board acts as the Veteran Service Commission.
Let's not get off topic here. So, okay. So all those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Okay, agenda item number 11, County Board Training and Mentor Program. So here I'm just recommending a motion to communicate with all county board members, encouraging them to attend the Wisconsin Counties Association training on May 16th at the Ramada in Richland Center, as well as encouraging participation in the new Supervisor Mentor Program. So at that training session that staff held for us on Friday, April 22nd, there were about 8 or 9 of us there. Information was shared about the WCA training, which is going to be held on May 16th. And we also shared information on the new Supervisor Mentor Program, and that's in the attachment. So I'm recommending that we get information out about the May 16th training to all of us. So this is partially to encourage folks here to attend that May 16th training. We do have to register with the county clerk. He would prefer to have it by the end of today. if possible. And he's got a little form you fill out, and then there's a $75 cost, and the county will pay for that $75 cost. Yep, Linda?
It was in our packet at the last meeting,
It was in our,
and I
Yep.
thought we filled it out then and gave it to him. Most, I don't know.
well, I think about 5 people did. There weren't a lot. I think it's easy to get information lost in the packet. So I think what I'm recommending here is we just send out an email to the whole county board, letting them know if they want to participate on May 16th to get in touch with Derek as soon as possible so that they can attend that training. And then the other thing is that the mentor program. So that was one of the things in our strategic plan, that we have a mentor program. And Marty had asked me if I would work on this. So there's a few slides here. I think we're really talking about the 3 new members. So Supervisor Fleming, Voice, and Renish. But if anyone is interested in mentoring one of them, I think Barb Voice and Linda Gentis are going to be matched up together. Oh, you've already been meeting. Overachievers. Awesome. So Julie, you would just need to be matched up with someone, and then Ken would need to be matched up with someone. So if anyone's interested in helping out with that and being the mentor, someone who's been on the county board, just let me or Marty know, and then we'll make sure that they're matched up. So we fulfill that part of our strategic plan. We said we were going to do that.
Just a note, I cannot attend on May 16th, so I'm going May 9th to DeForest.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's a good point. And maybe we could put that in the email to folks too, that there are ways to attend trainings elsewhere if you can't attend on the 16th in Richland Center. And then that training, the time. Thank you. 8:30. So typically a county board member, 8:30 to 3:30. It's at the Ramada, and they're feeding people too, morning snack and lunch. So yeah, just make sure to go down to Derek's office and let him know if you'd like to do that. So go ahead.
Not to interrupt your thought, but I just got a list from Derek on those that has confirmed of signing up. So we have Marty, Ingrid, Julie, Barb, Linda, and Sean that he's tracking right now that have signed up.
Okay, and typically I try not to send out emails to people, the whole county board, unless it's approved by a committee. So that's why I'm asking for this, to make sure it's okay that I send this out and that we don't have to push the communication through other people at the county who are already really busy.
Mr. Chairman, Derek is lurking back there. He may have a comment on that.
Did you want to say something?
I just read to you guys, but the reason that I wanted these by Friday is because if we wait until next week, it's an extra $10 per person. So I was actually registering them as you guys started talking about it. So if you can get them to me like before the end of day today or even tomorrow, I can make sure to get the reservations made before we pay the 10 extra bucks. I'll print some sheets off and have them up there when you're done.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming down. So are you all okay with me sending that out to everybody? Okay, so let's just make it formal.
I'll
Motion
second.
by Cosgrove and a second by Glassburner.
Is there a way for people to do that online? So if they have to have it in by Friday?
I tried to do that and I was not able to because they would have had to invoice us.
Can they call the information to him so they don't,
I'm sure they can just call Derek. I don't think they need to go into his office.
okay. So maybe making that clear. So since it's by tomorrow.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're listening, if you're back in your office, Derek, but just let us know if that's okay. Can people just call you or do they have to come into your office? If you can clarify that for me, I'll put that in the email. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those say no. Okay, that carries. I'll get that out. Agenda item, did I miss anyone? Yes, I thought, okay. They can call Derek. Okay. You don't have to go into the office. Thanks for asking that question. It will add confusion if we don't clarify now. Okay, so agenda item number 12, rule number 10 amendments. So I'm going to take another shot here at something else, and we'll see what you all want to do here. I'm recommending a motion to amend rule number 10 to clarify the difference between tabling and postponing. Okay, getting some thumbs up on this one. Thanks. So current County Board Rule 10 does not follow Robert's Rules of Order, which allows a motion to postpone to be debated. County Board Rule 10 currently states, when a motion is under discussion, no motion shall be in order except a motion to table until later in the meeting, or to table to a definite date, or to table indefinitely, which shall not be debatable, or a motion to amend. Motion to adjourn shall be in order and be decided without debate. So that's the way it reads right now. So that, and I forgot to put this attachment in the other day, but if you Google Wisconsin Counties Association parliamentary procedure, there'll be this presentation that comes up from Andy Phillips, and 3 of the slides on it distinguish tabling from postponing. So the definition of tabling is it temporarily sets aside the matter with intent to take it up later in the same meeting that day. And that's not debatable. Postponing is delaying action until a specific date or indefinitely, or until a certain event has passed. I didn't write that in there. So if these cards that got sent to us from WCA that were also in our packets, they say this on here. These are under the subsidiary motion section. They call it lay on the table, motion to lay on the table. But, you know, I don't know that we need to say that, but it says that cannot be debated. But it says postponing to a certain time can be debated, and postponing indefinitely can be debated. So what I'm recommending here is that we have that our Rule 10 now reads, when a motion is under discussion, no motion shall be in order except 1, a motion to table until later in the meeting, not debatable. 2, a motion to postpone to a definite date or indefinitely, and I put in parentheses, debatable. Or 3, a motion to amend. A motion to adjourn shall be in order and be decided without debate. Just going to look that up to see if that's accurate.
Mr. Chair, can I just clarify, when it says debatable, does that just mean if someone makes the motion, for example, to table, someone would have to second it and you have to vote without any discussion, versus if you make a motion to postpone, you could discuss that before there's a second?
Yep.
Or how
After
does,
the second.
after the second? So it's just saying no discussion.
That's right.
If you'll recall, we did exactly that when we were, our special meetings that we had regarding Rule 2223, so.
Can I ask a
these
question?
changes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Linda. Go ahead, Supervisor Gentis.
Okay, when it's tabled, it's going to be later in the meeting. We don't specify when later, and who can make a motion to not untable it or whatever. How does that work?
Well, I think anyone can make a motion to pick something up from the table.
It doesn't have to be someone who's voted yes or no. That's what.
No, I don't think so. I even think maybe the chair can just make that decision and just say, well, you know, we tabled this because the clerk had to run back to the office to go grab more information until we could make a decision on this. So now I'm going to pick it back. The chair could say, I'm going to pick it back up off the table. Let's get this one resolved.
Quite a bit for me.
Good parliamentary procedure. Go ahead. But you got to pull up to the mic.
On that question of, motion to table, and then to remove it, I believe that a motion would have to be made by a member of the majority who voted to table to remove it from table.
Oh, actually, yeah, you all might be right. Okay, so on the card, it says there are motions bringing a question before the assembly again. And there's one that's called take from the table. It does require a second. It's not debatable. It can't be amended, and the vote required is a majority. So it does, maybe the chair can't just do it. Maybe the body has to do it. That's what you were saying. Okay.
You have to vote to take it back up off the table. It would have to have a majority vote. Okay.
Yes.
And the motion would be majority, not
That's not, I've not found that information anywhere. Now, there is a board rule that we do have that is kind of along those lines, but it's not about this topic. That's when you're in, like the ATV discussion. You were that person, right? You changed your vote. You wanted to change your vote. So you asked that it be reconsidered at the next meeting because, yeah. So that's something kind of different from postponing and tabling. There you go.
If it does not get taken back up off the table, if the vote fails or no one moves to do that, does it die then? Or
Then
can
it
it
would
be?
die, I would believe.
I think these are great questions for the session coming up now from
Yeah.
Andy.
Yeah, for the training.
Really.
Yeah.
But I like these changes, Sean, and
Okay, good.
I'm fully in support.
You want to make a motion then?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Did anyone already make the motion? I did. Okay. So motion by Brewer, a second by Glassbrenner. Any further discussion? That's true. You can, local rules can trump Robert's rules. I did see that somewhere else as I was doing this research. But I think it would help us to know the difference between tabling and postponing. Because we really stumble a lot with that. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So that will be going forward to the county board. And then agenda item number 13 with Wisconsin Counties Association resolutions. So on this one, Chair Brewer asked me to take a look into this. So I did a little research. He got a letter from Mark O'Connell, the president of WCA, Wisconsin Counties Association, and they're looking for resolutions from Richland County. I had to do a little digging and understanding of this. So they consider them at their annual business meeting. Have you gone to that, Marty? Okay. And that happens at the annual conference, which this year is going to be in Sauk County in September. And so either Marty or myself or Marty's designee, we get one vote at that meeting. And I think there are 71 counties because every county is part of it except Dane County. So we could put forward any resolution we wanted to as long as it relates to public policy impacting counties' powers or responsibilities. So if we wanted to take a position on some controversial national issue that had nothing to do with the county business, they will not accept those, but they will accept anything related to county business. And then those are due by June 20th. And I called, is it Sarah Dietrich? She has a hyphenated name. And I said, hey, that's a little difficult because our county board meeting is June 21st. So she said, yes, you can send it in June 22nd, the next day. So we really have about a month and a week or two, 5-6 weeks to come up with resolutions through the committee process. And then have it passed by the county board. And then it's possible that at that business meeting, if the 71 counties approve whatever we propose, that could be added to their platform, which often impacts their legislative agenda. So like the state aid one is a good example. If you go to the attachment, it's 13B. There's a section on, I don't know if it's called finance or what it is, but Linda, you'll be really interested in this.
Trying to read it in depth last night.
Oh, you did? Oh, wow. Okay. Doing your homework. There's something on taxation and finance.
Yeah.
And I think I'm on page 9 of this document. And there's one on, oh gosh, the state aid one might be seek an increase in the shared revenue appropriation to reflect the growing costs of providing state mandated services. So if we wanted, we've done quite a bit of research on this now. So we wanted them to take a slightly different approach on that about state aids. We could pass a resolution and try to influence the counties association's legislative agenda. So this is just meant to invite ideas right now from the committee.
So we should come back next meeting with ideas.
Well, really, next meeting, we'd have to have the resolutions drafted. So, yeah, go ahead.
Does it have to come through this? Like, what if, I saw different sections in here, like Health and Human Services and things like that. Does it have to come through this committee before going to county board?
I don't know that it has to. It might be nice to kind of put them all together. So one of our responsibilities is handling resolutions that aren't sponsored by another committee. So if it doesn't get sponsored by HHS, but yeah, I would think HHS could just forward it right to the county board, but we might want to compile them all in one group and then take them to the county board.
I'm just asking because our June HHS meeting, I believe, is after a rules and resolution meets.
Well, yeah, and adjournment, I was going to talk about that because I'm a little concerned that I think part of the point of the reorg was to have finance and personnel and rules and strategic planning come after the standing committees so that things would move quicker through the process. So I was hoping we could adjourn to the second week in June so that, but I don't know if the other standing committees are meeting the first week in June, but it would be preferable so that
Ours meets second Thursday.
Okay.
So that would still, I mean, we could look at maybe.
I think that's the challenge of not grouping things in the first week in the month. The non-executive standing committees. I think that's why I would advocate for.
We can put this up here. If you wanted to talk about this now, it kind of goes into your adjournment item, but this is the existing, from what I know as of today, still could change, on where our standing committees are on a monthly rotating basis. Keep in mind, as the first of the month falling on a Sunday or Monday happens only 2 and 7. So for all these, imagine moving from the left to the right, there's a possibility that they could get shifted down one, if that makes sense.
So maybe if we set the process aside for just a moment, we can figure that out. But are there ideas for resolutions that people have around this table today that you know that you want to get thrown out there? State aid was the one that came to my mind.
Words, I just was trying to read through all, I mean, they have covered quite a bit of area, but I thought if we reinforce that.
So any other ideas besides state aid? If there's anything on the public safety side, or sounds like there might be at HHS potentially.
So on the public safety side, the Wisconsin counties last year was very instrumental in making the big push for NG 911. There's been a number of grant programs out there. I guess what would be helpful is to make sure that those continue, that they aren't one-time shots, and I guess something down that area that those projects continue to keep that funding, because that's going to be funding that we don't have to pull out of our budget directly, because the state's going to be helping the training and the equipment for the moving forward with NG 911. So that's my only other thought on that.
To help maybe put it in context too, so the resolutions that we're proposing, to the best of my knowledge, is resolutions that you want carried forward as a Wisconsin Counties Association completely adopted resolution, like the association stands behind this resolution to take forward to the state. In the process then of them building their legislative agenda, at some point in this summer, Marty, I forget when it happens, they're going to put out then a petition on where our legislative priorities then would fall. So they'll come in with a follow-up list on, based on these types of resolutions that we have in previous and existing, we think these are the major initiatives, and then how, from your county perspective, would you order these in order of merit, and make sure that this body's in tune to when those conversations start as well.
What do you all think about just sending out a communication to each of the standing committees that if they want to have a resolution considered by the county board, they just need to pass it at their June meeting? just giving them a little background, each of the 7 standing committees. And maybe actually 8, because finance and personnel is probably the one that would do state aid.
And Mr. Chairman, can you hear me? Yes. Probably nothing will come of this time because it's all new to us. However, this establishes a procedure, protocol for Richland County to finally get with it and get, proactive in change rather than sitting back here in Richland Center and gripe about it. Let's get out there.
Well said. Well, Linda, I'd be happy to work with you on a state aid one, because I think we got to say something. I think that's got to be a top priority myself, but I think that's very well said, Marty, because I think we could, Sarah from the Counties Association, I'm sorry, I don't remember her last name. She said, it's always the same counties that send us the resolutions. Right. So I said, well, we'll work on it.
I can put out a feeler on my Monday morning meeting with some of the other administrators to see which of those are drafting resolutions and see if we can put those as an examples of what other folks are doing. Try to get that to you for state aid.
You're saying you'll communicate with department heads that they could forward resolutions to their oversight committees.
I'm going to ask the administrators that are online in the meeting if they're forwarding resolutions in context of state aid. So then we'd have an example of what theirs might look like. It might be as easy then as kind of almost co-signing on a piece of legislation that they're promoting.
Right.
Thank you.
And that's where the end goal is. Visualize yourself almost as like a department within Wisconsin Counties Association, and we're all feeding up what we think should be the association's resolutions on their behalf. So they'll also then, that's where they come back around and this is all the resolutions in a packet and then help us prioritize it for our legislative session.
Thank you. Okay. And were you going to say something?
Well, he might have answered that because I was wondering if we needed to communicate with department heads to work with their oversight committees.
Well, I totally misheard what he was saying. So
yeah, so I think that answers that question.
But I think if we could have like a motion to communicate with standing committee chairs to put this on their agenda for June and provide them background information, then I could send that out to those standing committee chairs.
I'll make that a motion, please.
Motion by Brewer, second by Glassbrenner. Any discussion on that? All those in.
So, Clint, I'm sorry, just to clarify then, once you get that information, I guess if we have that, are we still trying to consider other individual ones, or would we really be looking at what do we want to, like you said, co-sign on this?
Well, I was going to ask on behalf of what you were looking at for the state aid is one that I know of right now that is of an interest. I can expand it to what resolutions are you folks sending? It's not an all-inclusive, not all the counties are on it. It's hosted through Nick at Price County. He's kind of hosts it, and there's usually anywhere from 10 to 15 of the counties, most of them being at the northern end of the county and kind of a smaller rural demographics is kind of what we all kind of share. Past that, there might be an opportunity to, I think in talking, I reached out to Sarah as well. I think there is a link or some place where she said where you can have access to see what company or what counties have already submitted. So if there's any that do get submitted, they try to share that. But I would have to track that back down from Sarah. Get that to you.
I asked her about that website. She said that was not the repository for resolutions from counties for this purpose. It was some other purpose. So I was thinking that I almost put that link in here, and she said it wasn't any good.
Okay, I thought she.
I'd be a little confused personally,
Yep.
But I do think that, if he gets any information on state aid, then we could incorporate that, but I think it's really going to be up to each committee. If they want to draft something, they can. Most committees, like Marty says, they're probably not going to do it, but at least we're opening up the avenues. Now committees can start doing this if they want to. So if, Josh Elder decides, he wants to do something about state highway aids and bring that to the oversight committee, maybe he will. If you mentioned that at a department head meeting, I guess you could or maybe the chair of, or whoever's our public works rep, Julie, you could bring that forward, to see if folks want to do something, but it would really have to be, the timeline's pretty short here. You almost have to do some homework before the June meeting. So that's why it might not happen this time around, but like, I would love to sit down with you, Linda. Let's figure out the state aid thing, bring it to finance in June, if that's okay with you, Marty, and then we'll try to get it through the county board, so.
So, Clint, in that call, could you ask if there's been any resolution or talk about funding for public safety communication? I know that's been a big topic, and if there's, I think anything down that line would be extremely helpful for Richland and the other small communities. Thank you.
Along that same line, Clint, I'm thinking that I would guess there's got to be other counties making some sort of resolutions related to funding for health and human services. As I'm looking at this list, I'm thinking, yeah, that would be great. This would be great. So I don't know. Yeah, similarly, if you could just look into that. Yeah, increasing child support funding. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I don't know if we voted on that.
I don't think
So all those in favor of me having that communication with the chairs of the standing committees, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Thanks for the good discussion there. Agenda item number 14, future agenda items. So I'll just go around the room here and see if anyone has any. Supervisor Glassburner? Okay, Supervisor Fleming?
No.
Supervisor Rudersdorf? Supervisor Seep?
Yes, at a previous, I think, strategic planning meeting, I believe Melissa Luck, we discussed the issue of county employees traveling out of state for conferences when the same conferences could be available to them in state. Was there ever any action taken or anything? I think there was a motion made, but there's no policy statement codified, right?
Not sure, but we'll look into that. So thank you. Supervisor Frank? Chair Brewer?
Well, I'd like to see a formal policy adopted covering conferences. For instance, the annual conference of the Counties Association. Who's going? Who do we authorize to go? Do we open it up to all county board? Or are we going to limit it to maybe 2 or something? Or the chair and co-chair, and then 2 other additional. We need to have some directive to Clint, or between us and Clint, to give down to Derek, and so he's not bombarded with various requests that he feels uneasy about approving.
Thank you. And then Supervisor Gentis? Supervisor Cosgrove? Okay. Oh, did you
Apologize, I did think of one.
Okay.
I don't know if we were planning on already having this on there, but I would like to talk a little bit more about the comprehensive plan scope, potentially at the next meeting. I'm planning on having some conversations with Troy, and trying to get some more information about that.
Great. And if folks think of any other items, you don't have to state it at this meeting. You can tell me after the meeting, and that's another way to get things on the agenda too. This is just a way for everyone to have a space to be able to say what their future agenda items might be. And then adjournment. So we need to figure out when do we want to adjourn to. And I hope that's not too difficult of a conversation, but when would folks, you want to keep it this first Thursday of the month and kind of just deal with the slowness issue? Or would you like to move it to a later date? Really, if we want to be after all the standing committees, the only one possibility at this point is the end of the day Friday. I don't know how people, Marty, how do you feel about trying to get standing committees to move things to the first week? Do you think that's too heavy of a lift?
It might be because so many of them have established times that they meet and days. And our problem, if moving us further in the month, puts us pretty close then to the board meeting. and we won't have time to do the things we need to get ready for the board meeting.
Can share some thoughts on this, and I don't mean to prod at any type of wounds, as this has become it's a challenge with everyone's schedules. We're very fortunate to have a lot of terrific people that are participating in these meetings, but those terrific people are also working for other organizations, whether for pay or for other volunteer type of projects. So it's a challenge to try to balance this. As a solution that we talked about with staff, potentially for maybe future sessions, is maybe if it becomes part of a county code ordinance on establishing when you want to have your meetings, the conversation then might change from for putting a petition out to supervisors on what committees do you want to participate. The question might be, when might you have more availability? And then it maybe gets templated where if you want to try to put them all in 1 week, okay, try to do that, but then we might have to have several of them, half of them PM or outside of work hours and half of them within work hours. And then at that point, you're maybe not picking a committee based on necessarily your most devout interest or what you want to do, but more so when you might have availability as a scheme. But I would say that based on all the discussion points and the anxieties of getting it arranged here, that might be a challenging conversation to have at this session.
Okay, so how about a motion to adjourn to Thursday, June 2nd at 10 a.m.? Motion by Cosgrove,
Second.
second by Frank. Any discussion on that? Well, a few seconds. The calendars. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning to Thursday, June 2nd at 10 a.m. in the county boardroom, you say aye.
Aye.
Those say no. Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Look forward to a great